Welcome back to another video. This is part 2 of a short series on multiplication. Last week we talked about using a reference number to help us with multiplying large numbers. And in this video we're going to take that to the next level by combining methods where we might have to do two lots of referencing and then considering what we have to do when we have a number below the reference number and one above. So let's look at this example here. We have 86 times 87. So we would use 100 as our reference number. So off to the side, we can circle 100. Now we write down how far away each of these numbers are from 100. So this is 14 away, so I'll put a minus 14. 87 is 13, so minus 13. And now I subtract diagonally. So whether I do 87 take away 14 or 86 minus 13, we'll end up with the same number. So 73 multiplied by the reference number. So at the moment we have 7,300. And then as we know, we have to multiply the two numbers together. Now 14 times 13, we can apply the same technique. We can this time use 10 as our reference number. This time we'll have 4 above and 3 above. Subtract diagonally, so we would end up with either 13 take away, we would add diagonally, so 13 plus 4 or 14 plus 3 will be 17, multiplied by the reference number 10, and then 4 3s are 12, and we would get 182, and we would add that to our total up here to leave us with 7,482. So that's the case where it's a little bit more tricky, where you're kind of having to do two sets of referencing to get to your answer. But again, once you've done that method, and just like when you did your times tables, when you do them enough times, you'll just start to remember the result. So something like 14 times 13, if you practice that enough using the reference method, eventually you'll just remember it is 182. So bear in mind that at the moment it's taking a while to do because I'm just outlining the strategy. But remember, this is all happening mentally, and the dialogue that you use is so important to actually arrive at the result that 86 times 87 won't be so daunting once you've practiced a little bit more. So now let's look at a case where we have above and below the reference number. And we start off exactly the same way. So let's, for example, have 98 times 135. Okay, so we'll use 100 as our reference number, but this time I'm just going to write the numbers slightly different. So 98 is 2 below, so I'm going to put minus 2 here. And 135 is 35 above, and I'm going to write it on top this time. So now we have one circled number below and one above. All right, so we're going to do the same thing. We're going to now either do 98 plus 35, so still kind of diagonally, 98 plus 35 or 135 minus 2, that would be probably the easier way. Either way, we'll end up with 133. And again, multiply by the reference number 100, so we just add 2 zeros when we multiply by 100. And now we're actually going to do 35 multiplied by, so remember we multiply both of our circled numbers, but in this case we've got a positive times a negative. And as we know, when we have either a negative times a positive or a positive times a negative, we'll end up with a negative result, so negative 70. So what we're going to do is, instead of as before we would add, this time we're going to subtract. So we would minus 70. And remember, when we're doing subtraction, an easier way to do subtraction like 70 is to actually take away 100 and then add 30. If you're minusing 9, you would subtract 10, add 1. That's a quicker method. So here we would just think, all right, we have 13,230. So take away 100 and then add 30 back. All right, let's try that one more time. So next example, let's say we have 96 times 125. So 100 is our reference. This is 4 below, and this is 25 above. Okay, diagonally, 125 take away 4, that would be 121. Multiply by the reference number, 2 zeros. I'm doing now 25 times negative 4. So remember, this is all happening mentally. That will be minus 100. So that one's a nice, easy one. Taking 100 away, leaving us with 12,000 exactly. All right, you can even use this strategy when you have above and below if your reference number is 10. So if you had something like 8 times 45 with 10 as your reference number, again, this would be 2 below, this would be 35 above. Working diagonally, we would have 43 times 10, 430, and we're going to minus 35 times 2, which is 70. Again, if you're subtracting 70, take away 100 and then add 30. So we would have 330, then 360 is our answer. All right, so that's the kind of new thing that you can add to your skill set. So now you're considering questions where you have a reference number and then you have two numbers above and below. So I'll write some examples for that you can actually have a go at. Just so you can practice what you've learned today. All right, so there are 5 examples that you can try using this technique that we've talked about today. Hope that helps, and I'll see you in part 3 next week.